So we're going to give it a minute for everyone to start showing up, as well as our guest of honor. Hi, hi. How's everyone doing? And just a little sound. I love seeing familiar names and seeing that folks are showing up. It makes me so happy. Aw. Hi, y'all. So we're just going to give it a minute for our lovely guest from Tigray to show up. I'm doing good, honestly. I'm doing fantastic. Today's a slightly higher anxiety day, but you kind of go with the flow of things and you allow them to be what they need to be. Oh, I see Mayaz is here. Let's see if I can. Mayaz, let's see if we can get you on. Ooh, Tigray Updates is here. Hi. Oh, there we go.
Hi,
How are you, Hefty?
I'm okay. Oh, I love it. I'm okay.
It's like my new favorite word now, so I'm using it all the time. I'm just like, hi, Hefty, salam, Hefty.
It's a very beautiful word.
It
Yeah,
is.
and we pretty much refer to each other Hafte because it's a sign of sisterhood
I love
as well. So,
that. I
yeah,
am here for all of that.
yeah.
How are you doing
I,
today?
I'm
Yeah.
okay. Very tired, a lot of work, but I'm fine. How are you?
Mhm. I'm surviving. No, I was saying just before you came on that today's like a slightly higher anxiety day, but that I'm going with the flow of things. So I'm keeping things chill. Today was my first day off in like 2 months. So I'm like, oh, I let myself sleep. I've been having tea and all of that stuff.
That's
So,
amazing. Yeah,
yes.
before the genocide began, Saturdays used to be my favorite days of all the
Mhm.
days. It used to be the only day where I care for myself. I used to go hiking early morning. I would buy flowers for myself every
Aw.
Saturday. And
Okay, we got to find ways to keep doing like some of that, even in like little bits and pieces, right?
yeah, it feels a bit wrong to do it now, but I know the importance of doing it. So it's very
Yes, yes.
important that you find a balance.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So before we begin, okay, so somebody asked, explain why it's in a higher anxiety day. So really quickly, when you're constantly go, 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 constantly doing work and holding space, it's very easy to not do those internal check-ins. And so when you kind of have like your first day to like rest and land, sometimes some of the things that you were holding start coming out, and that one day of relax might not feel so relaxing because you're actually beginning to offload some of the things that you've been holding on to. So I'm holding myself in compassion and in care, and I'm recognizing that the anxiety is probably from everything that's going on that I haven't been able to sit with. And so holding myself with compassion is key. And so I hope if anybody else finds themselves having days like that, that they recognize that, it's part of the discharge process, right? Giving yourself permission to just be in the ugly as well as be in the good. That's what it is to be human, right?
Yeah, and I'm really sorry that you go through that. It's something many of us, even in my community, have been scared of. Like
Mm.
we purposefully keep ourselves busy so we don't find a gap in between to internalize everything that is going on, everything that we have survived, everything that we continue to see, not only in our, home, but everywhere else. So I understand how difficult it is to mute that sound in your head and to have like a break even for a few minutes. So
Yeah.
whenever we're left alone, there is like a rush of, anxiety and so I think it's really important that we're kind to ourselves and find a way to get a break in between work. We shouldn't really
Yeah,
wait until, when we find the time, because at that
absolutely.
point you might break down and you may not be able to
Yes.
get back up.
Yes.
So
So
yeah,
that's why sometimes it's better to be in the discomfort so that way it doesn't just end up overloading your nervous
yeah,
system and you can't sit with it and you do everything you can to distract.
yeah,
But yeah, I want to go right into it because I know there's going to be a lot of content and a lot of information that we need to share.
yeah.
So occupation and famine. Like, let's start with the idea of occupation, the concept of it, and what the lived reality is when we're talking about the occupation. Because I feel like people don't like, I shared my post, I share the information, I share the content, but what does that really mean in the lived experience?
Yeah, so hi everyone. We got to talking without even greeting everyone from my end. So hi everybody. Um, I mean, occupation in the Tigray context means, your land being illegally annexed by the Eritrean forces as well as the Amhara militias,
Mm,
which is a region in Ethiopia that during the active military conflict fought against the people of Tigray
mm,
alongside the Ethiopian government and the Eritrean troops. So, to be specific, Western Tigray, which is the most fertile part of Tigray, which is also the part of Tigray that is rich in copper and oil
mm.
seeds and other resources, that also directly connects Tigray to Sudan, and which has served as a safe passage for some of the refugees we have in Sudan at the beginning of the genocide,
Yeah.
is now fully occupied by Amhara forces. And now, during the active military conflict, that's the place where like heinous human rights violations have occurred. That's where a lot of women were not only raped but also were used as sex slaves and were also used as comfort women for the soldiers and
Mm,
the militias. And that is also where the Amhara forces had basically instituted this system of ethnic profiling, whereby they were forcing the Tigrans who were there, those who couldn't really flee or escape, they were forcing them to change their identity by issuing an Amhara ID and basically forcing them to identify as an Amhara by ditching their Tigran identity in exchange for them not to be killed.
So,
Um,
what is the purpose behind that?
so the purpose behind that is, like I said, Western Tigray is the most fertile parts of Tigray. That's where a lot of, so that part has very fertile land and a lot of oil seeds are grown there. And there are also there it's also rich in gold and copper.
Mm,
So that is where a lot of mining takes place.
mm,
And it is one of the places where Ethiopia used to get, some of its highest hard currency from by exporting gold, copper, and oil seeds to different parts of the world. And so the Amhara region has historically contested that land. They have
mm,
always claimed that it's
mm.
theirs, while people who were born and raised there, say identify as Tigrans. So, and according to the Ethiopian constitution, a land belongs to its people,
Yeah,
and the people who live there are
absolutely.
Tigrans. So the purpose is to ethnically cleanse the Tigrans from that area and to claim the land. So that's what they have been doing. And since the beginning of the genocide, they have internally displaced over 2 million residents of Western Tigray. Many of them are currently living in a very extremely dire situation across like IDP camps. And the 70,000 refugees that currently are sheltered in Sudan are mostly they came from Western
Mm,
Tigray. So the ultimate purpose is to really ethnically cleanse, to displace, uproot the ancestral inhabitants of that place and to claim the land as their own. So what they did is their hope, I believe, is to somehow, eliminate as many Tigrans as they can, uproot as many Tigrans as they can, and somewhere then down the line, they will propose a referendum. And what they're doing is replacing the population, right? So they internally displaced the Tigrans. They brought their own Amharic-speaking people there. They started issuing IDs that says you're an Amhara, and then sometime down the line they're going to say let's have a referendum to decide who Western Tigray belongs to. And now you don't have Tigrayans there because they
They've
either have
been
been massacred,
displaced, yeah.
displaced, massacred, and now you have replaced it by Amhara people who are going to rightfully identify as Amhara, and then that way you will legally annex the land. So this is part of their playing for the long run, and that's the main purpose why they continue to illegally annex that part and are currently occupying it. And when you go farther to the border between Tigray and Eritrea, you have the Eritrean forces illegally occupying parts of Tigray, where they continue to commit all sorts of crimes, including raping, massacring, and preventing farmers from planting, meaning contributing to the famine, to the starvation. So um, this is what's happening, and it's extremely scary in the case of the areas that are occupied by the Eritrean forces, because in the part where they're occupying it, there is an ethnic minority, two ethnic minorities called Europe and Kunama. These
Europe
are
and Konama.
these are ethnic minorities that live within Tigray. They're Tigrans, but they're also ethnic minority within the Tigray context, and they're very small in terms of their size. So we fear they risk real threats of complete elimination because of their proximity to Eritrea and the fact that the Eritreans still continue to occupy that land, and they have been and continue to commit all sorts of crime, including massacre. So we are extremely worried about that. And occupation also means that no any sign of humanitarian aid has reached to these two parts of Tigray since the beginning of the genocide in November 2020. So you have a group of people who continue to live under occupation and being massacred, killed, tortured, raped, and without having access to humanitarian aid. So occupation isn't just, being ruled by
Yeah,
someone that you didn't elect or you didn't vote for in the Tigray context. It also means your rights being constantly violated, and it also means you not having access to the basic necessities you need to survive, which includes food and medicine. So this is really what it means to be occupied and to live under oppression in the Tigray context today.
that's insane. That was just so much so quick. Like,
Yeah,
I'm just like going, like, I've been taking notes like crazy.
yeah,
And so when I'm thinking about one of the points that you said earlier with um, them having people being forced to now claim themselves as Amharic versus
yeah,
Tigray, when that happens, when that referendum comes into place, like I'm just thinking like, why wouldn't you just at that point be like, no, I'm actually Tigray. They made me do this.
yeah,
Like it just doesn't seem like a very well thought out plan,
yeah.
but like what's going on behind that?
Oh, well, you can't do that for two things. One, there is no repatriation is not taking place. So the Tigrayans who have been uprooted from their homes are not able to go back. Their homes are now occupied by Amhara people. So, and the referendum is going to take place in Western Tigray, and only people who live in Western Tigray will participate in that referendum. They are the only ones who would have the constitutional right to legally, participate in that referendum. So the Tigrayans, the rightful and ancestral, inhabitants of that land, would not even be there legally to participate in that referendum. That's the one thing. And the second thing is,
Oh,
like, in order to participate in referendum and any type of election, according to the Ethiopian law, you have to have like a Abeli ID. You have to have an ID that shows you're indeed a resident of that place. And according to the Ethiopian civil law, if you live in one place for more than 6 months, you can actually get an ID claiming that you're a resident of that place. So what they're
Oh,
doing is
oh,
actually
the
that
games. Oh
yeah,
my gosh.
they're bringing their people. They live there for more than now. It has been over 2 years since the genocide began. So they have been living there for over 2 years. Most of them have already got an ID issued by the Amhara authority saying, we're the administrators of this place and you're the resident. And on your ID, you say, I am Amhara. So when you participate in the referendum, if it ever happens, you're going to participate as an Amhara, and the Tigrans are not even there
Not
because they're
allowed.
not able to
Yeah,
vote.
they're not even
Yeah,
allowed to participate.
yeah.
So, so now with this referendum and this like upcoming vote, we don't know when it is.
We don't know,
Like,
but
yeah.
that is, and so as a political analyst, that's how I see it. That's the reason why they're using this approach, like displacing people as a strategy, is in order to lay the ground for them to annex Western Tigray legally. And in order to do that, they have to change the ethnic demography of the Western Tigray.
Mm,
That's what they're doing.
that's crazy. And now with all of the Tigray people who are there, what's happening with all of their old paperwork? Like what's going on with their old status? Because I'm sure some of them are older, they already had their papers and everything like that. So where does all of that go?
Um, I mean, granted that we're talking about a third world country
Yes.
that doesn't have, like
Yes.
yeah, very developed, tracking of information. We have like many of us, at least the last time I was in Tigray, there was like a paper ID. You have a
Okay.
paper ID. That's how you would identify. But these people, I mean, they know each other. They have lived there for
Yeah.
centuries, many years. But like I said, they have been uprooted from their homes. You have 2.5 million people who used to be residents of Western Tigray are now forced to live in central Tigray and in Mekelle, the capital city of Tigray, and elsewhere in IDP centers, in makeshift homes. So they're not able to go back home. And mind you, these people left their homes,
Yeah,
fled
with whatever
bombardment.
they could carry. Like, yeah, they're just
Exactly. And
bolting. Yeah.
oftentimes it's just the clothes on their shoulder. That's it, nothing else. Like when your choice is either to stay behind or to stay behind and either be raped, or be massacred, be killed, or be killed by drone bombardments and indiscriminate shelling, you don't really think about your ID or
No,
anything. You just walk,
of
you
course
run for
not.
your life.
Yeah. You don't know
So
what's going on.
yeah,
You're just trying to survive.
yeah, so many of them don't necessarily have their IDs on them, but they know who they are, they know where they
Yeah.
came from, they have their lineage, they know each other. But again, they're not able to go back home because their home has been taken over by Amhara and Eritrean troops as well as residents. So this is what's happening at the moment. And the few Tigrans who were left behind there have been put in concentration camps. They have been brutalized
Okay,
to.
we have not spoken about the concentration camps. So that is something that I really want to touch
Yeah,
on because I don't think people understand the extent of the brutality that is happening. And too many times we're just hearing like the numbers and the generalization. So can you go a bit into
yeah,
details about that? Yeah.
yeah. So some of the strategies the Ethiopian and the Eritrean troops use to eliminate the Tigrans are not, it's not just only killing, it's also putting people in concentration camps, like what they did, like what the Nazis did during the
Hmm.
Holocaust. And so in Western Tigray, a lot of magazines, like bigger stores that were used by merchants to sell crops and whatever,
Yeah.
they were turned into concentration camps. And these are places that don't have any
Ventilation.
ventilation. Yeah,
Ventilation. Yeah, I
yeah.
got you.
And these are places that don't have any like bathroom or anything, no water whatsoever, because they were not designed to
They were
host that.
stores.
They
Yeah, they
were
were just for
stores.
storage. Yeah.
Yes, so the storages were turned into concentration camps, and mostly young men and women were put there, where they were brutalized to a point where. So the ultimate goal is for people to hate their Tigray identity, to choose denying their Tigray identity, in order to leave. So they put them in concentration camps where they don't have access to food, to clean water, or to restroom or medical
Anything.
support, whatever,
Yeah.
anything. And then they will beat them up there, and they would make sure that they hear people mourning, so they get the second degree trauma from that.
Mm.
And that's also where they will rape women in front of all the prisoners there, and for weeks, or at times even for months, they wouldn't let them get out of the storage, so they don't even have access to the sun. So many of them have actually gone blind after, at times.
Blind.
Yeah, there were times where some of the concentration camps were raided by the Tigrayan Defense Forces during the active military conflict. So whenever they try to free someone, they will find out that these people can actually see, because they have been kept in these concentration camps for months on end without access to the sun. So
Yeah, well, you have like the malnutrition, you have the
yes,
perpetual
yeah,
trauma, you have probably a deficiency of every single natural vitamin that the body needs.
yeah,
Um, I that is just so overwhelming to like
yeah,
to hear, let alone to like when it's your family, when it's your community, and most likely people don't even know who's in there, right?
yeah,
Because people are just taken, where so and so, did they escape? Did they go here? We don't know. And no one's coming, right?
yeah. And then it's very important to mention that there were children as well. There were children who were in the concentration camps. Okay, I understand if they want to arrest young, abled people because they worry that they will pick arms and fight them back to free their people, to liberate their land. But why would you put 6 years old, 5 years old children in concentration camps unless and otherwise your objective is to eliminate them through
Yeah,
starvation,
that's
through
just
disease?
genocide, right? Yeah,
Exactly.
that's the motive behind genocide, to get rid of not only just the physical presence of the people, but also the identity,
Yes.
right? And one of the things that I'm even thinking about right now is when you mentioned like separating them and making them hate their own identity. What then happens to the culture? What then happens to the legacy? What then happens to the art? Like everything can then just be appropriated
Yes.
and erased,
Yes.
right? And
Everything, like,
no,
sorry, didn't mean to cut you
no.
off, but everything that Tigray is very much loved by everyone in Ethiopia, other than the people themselves. So the scramble for our land, the scramble for our culture, the scramble for our history and heritage is just, it's so crazy. It's scary how you see people who are on TV, on the media, actively pushing for the complete annihilation of the people of Tigray, dancing to Tigrinya songs, wearing our
That's
hairstyles, like our
well, we
jewelry.
know where
It's
else we're
crazy.
seeing that. We know where
Yeah,
else we're seeing that,
yeah,
right? It happens everywhere. And even in the context of like North America, Turtle
yeah.
Island, that's what happens with Black culture,
Right,
right?
right.
Everyone wants to be Black, but nobody wants to be Black. So it's like everyone wants to be Tigray, but nobody wants to be Tigray,
Yeah.
right? It's
So
that like
you might
appropriating.
Yeah, you might have seen this beautiful lady's hair, having their hair done braided like all the way down, and wearing big jewelry and wearing
Yes.
this traditional white dress. That is the typical Tigrayan traditional clothing that we use in our, holidays, in our daily life.
Mm.
Now you go everywhere across Ethiopia. They have
And
a wedding,
everyone's
they have a celebration.
wearing it.
Everyone is doing it. And I'm like, if you love our culture so much, why don't you show a
Hmm.
level of sympathy and compassion to the people who are actually the historical owners of this culture and are being exterminated? So for them, all they want is to exterminate the people and to claim everything that used to belong to the people, so they can continue to claim it as their own.
It's such a repetitive example that just continues to happen everywhere.
Yeah.
And at the end, it all boils down to two things: capitalism and power,
Yep.
greed and power, right? Because
Right.
the first thing we touched on was how fertile the land is,
Yes.
how rich in resource it is. And no one is safe. And that's the thing that I really want people to like actually understand. No one is safe if you have something that capitalism and colonialism once. Like you're not going to be safe.
Yeah.
So it's either we all come together or we just get picked one at a time, one at a time. So with this occupation, I'm also interested in knowing, so we've named Ethiopia, we've named the Amharic occupation, and we've named the Eritrean military, all being players. So these are all regional, local players. What is going on in a more global context? Like, how are they getting all of this money? Because 2.5 million displaced plus the entire population. Like,
Yeah.
I'm from Sudan. Like, I know my government has some money, but they don't got that much money. So, what's going on a global perspective?
Yeah, on a global perspective, I believe the West is they continue to find themselves in this position where they have to babysit and aid and abide the Ethiopian federal government because they don't want to lose Ethiopia to China and Russia. So their foreign policy is driven by fear, which is why they're happy and okay to overlook the genocide that is being committed against the people
Mm.
so that they can keep their errand boy, the Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy, in power, which allows them, one, to kind of to liberalize the markets. So capitalism is very much alive and it's out there, destroying
The
the social fabric,
lives and everything.
yeah, as a whole. And but at the same time, I feel like most of the international community is focused on rehabilitating the Ethiopian image, the Ethiopian government's
Mm.
image. Just last week, the World Food Organization gave a prize to the Ethiopian Prime Minister amidst a conflict-driven famine that is wrecking the entire country. So the famine is not only in Tigray. Of course, in Tigray, it's a lot worse
Yeah.
because Tigray has been going through this genocidal war for over 2 years. The farmers were not able to plant their land. Their resources have been looted. So the impact of the famine is very much pronounced in Tigray, but it's also present across the country. Even in Amhara, according to a report that came from the Associated Press, 44 people died last week of starvation. I know for a fact there is famine in some parts of Oromia, there is famine in some parts of Somalia and other
Mm.
lowland areas in Ethiopia. But regardless of this, and these are figures that came from international organizations, including the World Food Program and the UN. According to them, there are over 20 million people in Ethiopia that are in need of immediate food. And so there is like, starvation, malnutrition, and everything. Nobody cares about this because everyone is invested on rehabilitating the Ethiopian government's image, which is why they just gave an hour to the prime minister. This is an hour that was given to him by the World Food Organization. Mind you, while people are dying from lack of food, there is this an international government that is giving an award to this prime minister who
The
has,
puppet shows, the puppet shows. Oh my
yeah.
God.
And this is not happening in isolation. This is happening because there are countries that have allocated enough funding and resource to rehabilitate the Ethiopian government's image because advocates in the diaspora and allies across the board have done a remarkable job despite the challenge to amplify the plight of the people and to
Mm.
bring the crimes that continue to be committed to everyone's attention. And so in order to rehabilitate that image, they have invested millions and millions of amount of money to give awards to the prime minister. And we're hearing that there are even like PR companies that were hired by the United Arab Emirates. And
That's literally what I was just thinking about right now. Just like another PR propaganda
yes,
strategy to get us to play ball into
yeah,
whatever narrative. So
yeah.
what's going on with this UAE
So the
PR?
UAE, there are some internal memos that were leaked that indicate the UAE has allocated millions and millions of dollars not only to get the
The
prime minister.
UAE again, like that is like
Yeah,
I've been boycotting them for a long time. I'm going to continue to boycott them for a long time. I
Yeah.
really wish everyone would stop buying into the glitz and glamour of Dubai and thinking that UAE is this like beacon of light in the Middle East when it is literally a smoke and mirror, right? Like they are as fake as their artificial buildings and islands. Like that is all it is.
Yeah, and they have played a leading role during the active conflict. They were one of the
Mm.
countries that were providing drones actively, drones that ended up being used to bombard and carpet bomb kindergartens, schools, churches, even mosque. The Al Najashi Mosque, which is the first African mosque, which is located
Oh,
in
I
Turkey.
know. That's
Yeah,
like Islam's. That's why people say like Africa was the first home of
yeah.
Islam,
And it
right?
was
And
that mosque.
Ethiopia. Yeah,
Yeah, that
I
mosque
didn't even
was,
know.
yeah, it was bombarded through drones that were sponsored and bought by the UAE, by Saudi Arabia, and Turkey. You would think this country,
All these Muslim countries are
yeah,
cows. Like I just, oh my God. No, they don't care.
yeah,
And it's been a long while that I said they do not represent anything other
yeah,
than materialism, capitalism, and power. They've long since sold their souls.
yeah.
And yes, I'm so sorry to interrupt. It's just the
No, it's not.
frustration. Like I can literally feel it building up
Yeah,
because, again, people want to paint this image, and too many people are still believing the lies.
right.
And
I
that
mean,
is where we have to start challenging back.
yeah, looks can be so deceiving, and
Mhm.
UAE is doing quite a good job in terms of, romanticizing the very idea of this, a beautiful city, golden city in a desert,
Mhm.
in a sand. Little did we know, this government in particular is investing lots of money to destroy ancestral lands, to destroy civil human beings, to destroy rich historical places, including mosques and things like that. And they're continuing to provide this financial support to the Ethiopian government and to the Eritrean government as well, which is enabling them to continue the kind of crime that they have been making, like with impunity. So the UAE in particular is investing a lot of money to rehabilitate the Ethiopian government's image. They're not only facilitating these awards, but it's rumored that they're also buying honorary, doctorate degrees, which would be given to the Ethiopian Prime Minister from different universities across the world. Mind you, we have a Prime Minister. Yeah.
Okay, nope, keep going
Yeah.
because I'm going to go on a tangent on how angry I am. Please keep going because that just infuriates me.
Yeah, and I don't think a lot of people understand or know who the Prime Minister is. The Prime
Hmm.
Minister is, like, for lack of a better like expression, he's a self-entitled idiot guy who can't even construct a single
Yeah.
sentence. He's the dumbest leader I have ever seen in my entire life. And mind you, I went to school to study political science, international relations and law. So whether I like it or not, I had to study a lot of leaders historically. And yet
Mhm.
he is one of the most uneducated, illiterate leader I have ever seen. He can't even speak a proper English. I'm not saying not speaking English is a sign of incompetence, but in his case, it really is. Like,
Yeah,
it's just, I cringe every time he says something because he's just so dumb. And then he plagiarizes everything.
of
Go and
course.
listen every speech he gives. He copies and pastes from others' work without recognition whatsoever, and then he claims it as if it's his own work. And and at the same time he has this. So he's like, he comes from the prosperity party, like this evangelical thing that's going on
Oh,
nowadays.
okay, okay.
So he is a preacher in a way. So he makes you believe that questioning his work, his policies is a sin. You're supposed to believe everything he says, you know?
Oh, so he's
Yeah.
divine is what we're trying to
Oh
say.
yeah.
That's the game we're
Oh,
playing. He's
like
divine.
he thinks the rain falls because he told God
He
it
willed it. Yeah.
happened. Yeah.
So basically, we have a egotistical,
Yes.
narcissistic, uneducated, and I don't mean that in like a colonial sense. I literally mean that in logic and in thought processing, running around genociding, murdering, and perpetuating all of these atrocities. And this is who the foreign governments want to uplift, because we know their game is always to keep Africa as
Yeah.
destabilized as possible and to
And
have as
also,
many
And
puppet
also,
leaders.
yeah, I was just gonna say that when you have a leader like that who's incapable of, like critical thinking, who's not cognizant, who lacks that cognizant thinking skill, it's easy to run him.
Of
It's
course.
easy to have him do whatever you want him to do. So of course they want him to be in power because he's not gonna question their foreign policies. He's not going to question their economic
No,
policies that end up hurting people and not benefiting the people. So of course they want him to be in power. And one of the other strategies that they're trying to use to rehabilitate him is working with African influencers, working with Black influencers. So they're trying to take Black African influencers to Ethiopia. There are like companies that do this kind of work for him, and these influencers are supposed to show the good sides of Ethiopia. They're supposed to show how beautiful and peaceful Ethiopia is, and how that is all thanks to the man, to the holy, to the one and only, the prime minister. And little do people know that Ethiopia is one of the most colorist countries ever, that fellow Africans in Ethiopia, the name Africa by itself is used as a derogatory term. And
oh yeah,
Ethiopia,
it's
like,
very much the same in
yeah,
Sudan. Very much the same in
you
Sudan.
see
Like
someone like with darker complication walking, what is it, skin tone on the
complexion, yeah.
complexion, yeah, on the street, you say, oh, he's Afrikawi. Like, it's
Oh,
just so ridiculous to me. What, and you are? And then the current prime minister is on record actually making a mockery of the slavery, blaming African Americans for the poverty, for the marginalization that they went through on their laziness, according to him. So he says we Ethiopians shouldn't be like them. And yet they're trying to reach out to African American Black influencers to rally the entire African nation behind this one great African leader who is trying to uplift Africa as a whole by, I don't know, maybe by eliminating the most indigenous African society in his own country. So these are some of the things that they're doing. So they're reaching out to influencers, they're reaching out to leading African experts and the academia, they're reaching out to African American influencers across the board. They have even opened a TikTok account where
oh, he
it's
has a
rumored.
TikTok
Yeah,
account.
they just,
He has a
yeah,
TikTok.
yeah,
So okay, I just I have to laugh because it's so sad
yeah,
that all I can do is laugh, right?
yeah.
And I think people, there's just like I'm seeing some of the comments and I just
I,
want to
I
like,
don't see the
oh
comments.
yeah,
So,
I see them
so
on my end.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So I'm seeing some of the comments, and a couple of things that I just really want to center is when it comes to white supremacy, you do not need to be white in order to uphold white supremacy.
Yeah.
You do not need to be white to uphold any form of systemic oppression. You just have to be invested in it. And most of the people who are invested in it are completely quite individualistic and are only concerned with what benefit they're going to have with no care for their people. Like they might have their small circle that they actually care about, but most of the time we're dealing with narcissism and folks who just want their egos inflated as much as possible.
Yeah.
And so in the continent, through colonization, there has been a concerted effort to have people hate their own blackness, right? And that's not new. Like it's in every one of the countries there, but you go from like some subtleties, right, into direct acts of aggression, right? And blatant displays of anti-black racism even as a black person, because again, anyone can uphold any system of oppression. You can still be black on the outside
Yeah.
and internalize and uphold a whole lot of anti-black racism. So this is not surprising whatsoever, but it is devastating the effort that is going on behind uplifting this individual with the list that never seems to end of war crimes that he is actively committing right now. There was one question just on the occupation that I want you to touch on. Where did it go? Okay, so Gabby asked, who constitutes the oppressive population? Mostly governmental, citizen civilians, specific ethnic groups, and apologies if this was already stated. So again, who constitutes the oppressive population? So I know we said Amharic, the Amharic
Yeah.
resistance groups, we said the Ethiopian, and we said the Eritrean. Is there anything else that we've missed outside of the
Yeah.
UAE's part?
Yeah, I think it's important to look at, if we look at it structurally, in terms of structure, it is the Ethiopian state as a whole. It is the
Mm,
Ethiopian state that is making it possible for the Eritrean troops, that is making it possible for the Amhara militias and for the Fano militant terrorist group to come and occupy this land. So
mm,
the lion's share of oppressive goes to the Ethiopian state as a
mm,
whole, as a structure. And then if you want to dive deeper into it, the people who are actually on the ground, illegally annexed the land and operating there, are troops from Eritrea, are militias from the Amhara ethnic group, and there are also members of the Ethiopian Federal Army, which constitutes everyone across the board from Ethiopia. So it's most, for me, I put majority of the blame on the Ethiopian state as a whole, because Eritrea wouldn't have been deep in Tigray, occupying land,
mm,
oppressing people, and committing crimes if it wasn't, one, invited by the Ethiopian government to do so, two, had the Ethiopian government actually recognized the interference of Eritrea, they could have brought the case to the UN Security Council, and they could say Eritrea has infringed my sovereignty. So they could have sued them at the UN Human Rights UN Security Council, and member states of the UN Security Council would have been forced to evoke an article that clearly says if a member state is under attack by another country, they have an obligation to collectively act in support of this country. But because Ethiopia wants this occupation of Tigray to continue for years on end, they haven't even formally and officially recognized the presence of Eritrean troops deep in Tigray, and they haven't officially asked the Eritrean troops to withdraw from Tigray. So for me, yes, the Eritrean troops are there. Yes, the Amhara forces are there, but all of them are there because the Ethiopian government allowed them to do so. So the main responsibility goes towards the Ethiopian federal government, I would say.
absolutely. And I actually want to go even further back just because, I love educating people. But even if we go beyond, um, and this is more in the general context of the continent of Africa, one thing that I definitely want to highlight is really remembering and understanding that these borders that we have today have nothing to do with Africans. Like Ethiopia is the only country that wasn't colonized, but everywhere else, the borders, the lines were intentionally drawn up to ensure that there would be instability because we did not make those borders. Those borders were made for us,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So keep that in mind as we're also thinking about the greater liberation of the entire continent.
yeah.
I pinned a question. Would
I
like
don't know
to,
why I can't see anything. Is there anything I
okay.
need to do? Just
No, I'll read it out
okay.
loud. Okay.
Sorry.
Would like to know more about the significance of Tigray on the Abrahamic religions. Is it true that it's considered the area where these religions developed? Oh, I can answer that. Quick answer, yes.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
I'll let you go into
yeah.
detail.
So, pardon me, I'm not really a religious person, so if I make
That's
any
okay. Got
factual
it.
errors, but from what I know, the Ark of the Covenant, which is basically the original document where the Ten Commandments were written, is believed to be found in Tigray in the Holy Church of Saint Mary
Mhm.
in Aksum. And Aksum is one of the 5 ancient civilizations in the world, next to the Egyptian civilization, the Efrat civilization, the Egrat civilization, Chinese civilization. So Aksumite civilization is one of them, and that is in Tigray, and that there is a holy place called Saint Mary Church, and that is where the Ark of the Covenant is located. And Aksum is to Christians what Mecca is to Muslim. It is the holy place. It's one of the places where you find the true meaning of Christianity,
Mm-hmm.
in particular Orthodox Christianity, and that's also where you find proof that that indeed there is the Ark of the Ten Commandments. The document is there, and it's guarded by monks and by clergymen at the church. And there were multiple attempts to destroy the church and to take that, but by the power of God, by the power of Saint Omer, it has been protected. There were multiple attempts. There were attempts to drone bomb the church. There were attempts to shell it with heavy artillery, but none of it was successful, and the church hasn't been damaged. It is still very much intact. But there
Wow.
are the monks and the priests who live there. They tell lots and lots of miraculous stories through which the attempts were basically turned into nothing, according to them.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, you have to be a believer, to believe all of this. But they say, they would literally see bombs being dropped there, but they just turn into stone when they touch the ground. So they say this is yet another proof that the Ark of the Covenant is indeed within that church. So it's a very important place, and uh,
Absolutely.
yeah, it holds a
Yeah.
very special and significant place. But not only that, we also have over 44, I believe, broken churches that
Wow.
were built many centuries ago that speak to the historical significance and importance of Tigray in the
Mm-hmm.
Christian faith. So yes, it's a very important place in terms of the Abrahamic religion.
Absolutely. And I'll just chime in and add, in terms of the Abrahamic religions, like with Islam, um, Ethiopia is where the prophet went
Yes.
when what is now Saudi
Yeah.
and in Mecca wanted to murder
Yeah.
him. That's where he got shelter. That's where he was protected. And that's where he was able to regain his strength. Like Ethiopia, and I'm like 99% sure it was like the
Oh,
Tigray region. Like
it was
it
actually,
was, right?
there was a Christian king called
Yes,
Najash. So
yes,
he
yes.
said
Thank you.
there
Thank you.
is. So Muhammad said he. Pardon me if that's not the proper way of
It's
referencing to it.
okay.
So he said, go to this place called, Abyssinia. That's what
Yes,
we called
yes,
at
yes,
that
yes,
time.
yes, yes,
And then
yes.
he went there, and he told them there is a Christian, kind, fair king called Najash, and
Yeah.
that was in Tigray, a place called Al Najashi, which is why the
Thank
mosque
you.
is there.
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
he went there. His followers went there. The Christian king gave them space to practice, not only to
Yep.
practice their faith, but also to expand it. And
Yep.
then they built the first African mosque in a place called Najash, Al Najashi Mosque, which
Mm.
is in Tigray, again, which was destroyed by drones from Turkey, Saudi Arabia, and UAE.
So
But
I'm gonna create a post on that
yeah,
because yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. So I'm definitely gonna release a resource with that and really break it down to people because again, everyone seems to be in this mindset that, oh, Saudi is just like this beacon of faith because they have like Mecca. No, like the leadership has nothing to do with our faith. They are absolutely
yeah,
terrible and completely corrupt. I don't care. They can ban me. I'm never stepping foot there. I'm good.
yeah,
So
yeah.
screw all of them.
Yeah, even
And
the
then,
first the first Bilal, the first
mm,
Bilal, the one that
yeah,
Bilal is a person, the
yeah,
Allah Akbar. So the first guy, he was from Tigray.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well, and I think even the story,
and his name is
he's
Bilal actually.
related to either his mother was a princess or a queen or something like that. I can't remember, but like in the story that we have, We know that his mom was of some sort of like royal blood. So,
I'm not sure about
I
that.
know.
I know we have Queen Sheba, who was
Yeah.
related to the Solomonic
Yeah.
dynasty. She gave birth from him. So, and again, she was part of the Aksumite civilization, which is again from Tigray. Like I said, Tigray, despite our size, is the bedrock of Ethiopia as a
Yeah.
nation. Like, for example, Ethiopia has its own unique alphabets. We don't use ABCD. We
Yes, yes,
have
yes, yes, yes.
alphabets called Ha Hu He Hu Ho, and we have our own calendar, and we have our own way of, like counting numbers and the
Mhm.
years, everything. All of these things come from Tigray. Everything. It comes from the Aksumite civilization. Even the language that is mostly talking in Ethiopia, Amharic and Tigrinya and others, they're Semitic languages. And
Mm.
that's primarily because the Aksumite civilization during their era, they were active, they were very much influential all the way to the Middle East. So they
Yeah,
had connections, which is why
that's
even
amazing.
our language, yeah, has some sort of similarities with a lot of language, including
Yeah.
Faris, Arabic, and so many others.
Well,
So
yeah, and it's still considered like within the extended family of the
it's the
Kushite.
Semitic, yeah,
Yeah,
Semitic language.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yes,
and that's
I love that.
that's because of the influence the Aksumite civilization had, from which all the language, all the numeric
Mm.
numbers, all the calendar, and everything that Ethiopia has today comes from. So the main reason why Tigray has historically continued this faced this continued attempt and elimination is because despite our size being small, we play a
It's just
significant role in the
rich,
foundation of the country.
rich, rich, rich,
Yes,
rich in history, rich in culture, rich in contribution,
yeah.
and apparently rich in land, which is what they care about.
Even you mentioned like a very good point about Ethiopia never being colonized. And the reason why Ethiopia has never been colonized is because there was a battle called Battle of Adwa, which was fought
Mm.
against the Italian occupant. They tried to colonize Ethiopia, but the people came together and defeated them at a battle called Adwa. Guess where Adwa is? In Tigray
Mm.
again. So
Hey.
it's everything. And now what they're trying to do in order to marginalize the importance and the significance of Tigray as a whole is they're trying to build everything that's in Tigray, to build like a replica of it in the capital city of Ethiopia. So people don't go to Tigray for tourism. People don't travel there to see. So for example, you want to learn, you want to go and visit the place where Black people were able to defeat white colonizers for the first time in their history. So you want to go to Adwa, to Tigray, but they don't want you to go to Tigray, because you going to Tigray means you learning more about Tigray, you investing your money in Tigray, empowering the people economically.
Mm.
They don't want that to happen. So
Of
what they're
course
trying to do
not.
is replicate something that looks like that and build it in Addis Ababa, at the capital of Ethiopia. So you don't go to Tigray. It's just the very systemic way through which they're trying to wipe off Tigray from the map is very, very sick. It's sickening,
Absolutely.
the extent that
It's
they're going to. Yeah.
That just drives me crazy. Well, we're going to do our work to make sure we preserve what we can and educate where we can, because that's part of the privilege of being in the locations that we are, right? We get to be a voice for those who speaking up comes at the cost of their
Right.
life, right?
Right.
And as terrible as the shame and just the heaviness of like being in that privilege is, like we have to lean into it, otherwise everything else is lost, right?
Right.
Everything else is lost. We have to put the pressure, we have to keep doing the work. um I can't believe somehow we're already at an hour. When did that happen? I could talk to you
Yeah.
forever.
Yeah.
um but I don't want to um, close off without us touching on Metagrai, so that way folks understand the work that's being done.
Yeah.
You'll see at the bottom, it's the live fundraiser. It's one of the ones that I'm like always wanting to amplify
Yeah.
because of how beautiful they do the work. So I'll let you talk a bit about
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
and remind everyone, even if it's $1, if
Yeah.
everyone gives $1, that ends up being so much.
Yeah. Yeah, so thank you so much for that reminder. So Omna Tigray is a non-profit, non-partisan global organization that we established in response to the genocide. It very much focuses on educated advocacy. We want to make sure that people have resources they can use to advocate for peace and stability in the Horn of Africa, but primarily in Tigray, because we established it in response to the genocide. And our focus is really on, like educating people, because
Mm,
we believe education is power. The more informed people
exactly.
are, the more they will be able to advocate and fight for people who have been effectively silenced. And our name is a Tigrinya word. It means a big tree with big branches. And the reason why we call ourselves Omna is we it is in recognition to the multiple attempts that were done to eliminate the
Mm,
people of Tigray, but also to recognize our resilience as a
mm,
community as well. So no matter how hard they try, we'll continue to flourish and to thrive despite, the heartache and the pain that we go through. So Omna Tigray would be your one shop place to go for resources, for advocacy, and we have timely reports, situational reports that we published regularly through that can give you a depth analysis into what's happening. We also publish contents on Twitter and Instagram on different
mm,
topics, including the famine that's going on now, the weaponized, sexual violence that the women of Tigray sustained, the destruction of resources, the destruction of public institutions,
mm,
hospitals and universities, and everything that happened really. So Omna Tigra is the one place that you go to not only to educate yourselves, but also to find actionable items
mm,
that would help you to engage and support the people of Tigray. So for example, now we're amplifying fundraisings to support people with food in reference to the famine that people are going through. So if you go to our website, you'll find vetted organizations that you can donate to.
mm,
And even
mm,
as ourselves as an organization, we support refugees that are across the Horn of Africa, because we have refugees not only in Sudan, but also some in Kenya and Uganda as well. So we do
mm,
support those. And we also fund smaller initiatives within Tigray, because we believe the solution should come from within, not only just from outside. So it's one of the organizations that I'm so proud to be a member of and to play a role in terms of establishing it. It's just we have a group of people not only from Tigray but from other places that continue to work from us from the very beginning to now, and it's our love letter to our people that it's the
I
one
love that.
institution, yeah, through which we continue to fight. We do a lot of work in terms of
Mm,
documenting what happened. So it's a very great resource to tap onto. So if you go to our website, which is really user friendly, you find everything you need in order to take action. And I encourage people, to donate. This is a work that we do freely. No one at Omna is paid. Um, like I said, this is our love letter. This is our commitment to our family members, to our ancestors who made it possible for us to be where we're today. But it's important to remember that, none of the work we do will be successful if we don't find a way to support people that are in dire need on the ground. So whatever donation you make to Omna Tigray doesn't go to administrative cost or to anything. It goes directly to support initiatives that are doing work that change lives on the ground, whether it's in Tigray or in the refugee camps across the Horn of Africa. So I encourage everyone to find it in their heart to donate however much you can. If you can't, it's okay. If you can just share our posts and share it with your local leaders, news organizations. If you connect us to your academic institutions. If you're a professor in a university, please reach out to us. We would love to collaborate with you and see how we can utilize your resources to further amplify the plight of the people. If you're an influencer, you can collaborate with us. We can provide you all the content you need, like our beautiful sister here is doing. So whatever you need, just feel free to reach out to us. And like we have a group of amazing human rights defenders that have put their knowledge, resources, and time to build this organization from
mm.
scratch up. It's something that we did just by ourselves with the help of allies. So it's one of the organizations that I'm so proud of. So I encourage everyone to follow us on all platforms, including IG, TikTok, Facebook, and Twitter, and also to actively use our website to
Mm,
empower you so you can take action. Because I
mm,
want to make sure, we often have these conversations about our struggle, but I want people to use this conversation to inform them and to lead them towards action. So it's
yes.
not for you really just to listen and to walk away. It's also for you to feel empowered
Hmm.
and to take action. And to that effect, we have Omna Tigray that continues to provide resources upon after resources, so you don't even spend your precious time trying to research
Yeah.
or write. And I guarantee you, every information that is put on Omna Tigray on our website and social media accounts is backed by credible references. So, because we don't want you just to take our words, we want you to be able to cross-check it with whatever
That's so